During his inauguration speech, Trump reiterated he wants to make it the Gulf of America.
Another one of President Trump's day one actions has set up the Department of Government Efficiency.
Trump issued roughly 1,500 pardons on his first day in office.
Trump administration is formally designating 8 Latin American crime organizations as foreign terrorist operations.
He is withdrawing the U.S. from the World Health Organization.
The Trump administration imposed large tariffs this morning on goods imported from Canada, Mexico, and China.
President Trump paused tariffs on Canada and Mexico for 1 month.
The Trump administration and Elon Musk are eyeing a shutdown of U.S. aid.
The U.S. Postal Service has suspended accepting parcels from China and Hong Kong until further notice.
The U.S. Postal Service is once again accepting parcels from China and Hong Kong.
President Trump says he wants the U.S. to take long-term ownership of the Gaza Strip.
The president also announced he is firing the chairman and several board members for the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, naming himself chairman as well.
And President Trump also announced plans today to sign an executive order to roll back efforts from the Biden administration to embrace paper straws.
President Trump says he's directed the Treasury Department to stop minting new pennies.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is renaming Fort Liberty to Fort Bragg. Of course, this time it will be named for Roland Bragg.
The Trump administration announced Tuesday they secured the release of Mark Fogel, an American teacher detained for 3.5 years in a Russian prison.
Confusion even felt at the Department of Energy as 2,000 workers were let go, but then reversed.
Health and Human Services firing roughly 2,000 employees, another 1,400 workers cut from the CDC. The Department of Interior axing 2,300 personnel. 1,000 of those work for the National Park Service. The Department of Energy firing between 1,000 to 2,000.
And meanwhile, it's been assumed Elon Musk is running the Department of Government Efficiency, but a White House official says that's not the case.
Oh, long live the king. That's what the official White House Twitter page tweeted out today with a photo of this President Donald Trump wearing a crown.
The Trump administration is firing another 2,000 USAID workers and placing thousands more on leave.
CBS News was told late today that the acting administrator is Amy Gleason, a veteran of the first Trump administration.
President Trump today floated the idea of what he calls a gold card, a potential fast-tracked U.S. citizenship for the price of $5 million.
The Trump administration says it will begin hand-picking which media outlets cover events with President Trump. That breaks decades of precedent.
Layoffs are underway tonight at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which oversees the National Weather Service. The cuts are said to affect up to more than 1,800 employees.
Today, Trump was asked again whether he still thinks Zelensky is a dictator, and he said, "Did I say that?"
A planned photo op between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky devolved into a verbal confrontation, leaving in doubt any possibility of soon ending the war in Ukraine.
The president today also signing an executive order designating English as the official language of the United States.
President Trump is formally halting military aid to Ukraine at 12:01 a.m. That 25% tariffs on imported goods from Mexico and Canada will go into effect. China will also see its current tariff double to 20%.
Canada, China, and Mexico all announcing retaliatory measures to answer President Trump's tariffs.
A classic Trump reversal, which he pretends is not a reversal, saying that he's going to pause the tariff on automobiles from Canada and Mexico for 30 days.
The Trump administration is canceling roughly $400 million in federal grants and contracts to Columbia University.
Department of Education tonight firing 1,300 workers. The layoffs mean the department will have a workforce about half the size it did when President Trump took office.
The U.S. will resume military aid to Ukraine.
The latest Tesla dealership on the south lawn of the White House.
USAID staff is being told to shred and burn all their classified documents.
Today, the Trump administration's 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports kicked in.
Donald Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act of, wait for it, 1798.
Hundreds of alleged gang members were arrested and deported to El Salvador this weekend by the Trump administration.
Trump's executive order also bans gender-affirming care for transgender service members.
Supreme Court Chief Justice Roberts issued a rare statement as tensions grow between the Trump administration and the courts.
U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi is calling a recent spate of attacks on Tesla dealerships across the country acts of domestic terrorism.
Famed baseball legend Jackie Robertson's military story is back on the Defense Department's website. The DOD saying it was, quote,
mistakenly removed amid a DEI purge.
President Donald Trump today fulfilling a major campaign promise, officially signing an order to begin the process of dismantling the federal Department of Education.
President Trump says he's unhappy about a portrait of himself hanging in the Colorado state capitol.
This just in, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, says he was accidentally texted war plans.
President Trump's big announcement on auto tariffs was made, a 25% tariff on cars not made in America.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is pulling back $11 billion worth of grants earmarked for community health departments.
10,000 Health and Human Service full-time employees are losing their jobs.
And President Trump avoiding questions tonight about his comments that he's not ruling out a third term in the White House.
ICE admits it mistakenly deported a Maryland father to a notorious prison in El Salvador.
The cuts include senior leaders and staff focused on HIV prevention, reproductive health, and respiratory diseases.
More than 400 books were removed from the Naval Academy Library at the order of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's office.
President Trump declared a national emergency, and he announced one of the most sweeping tariff plans we have seen in decades here.
Elon Musk's days at DOGE might be numbered. The Justice Department will restore gun rights to actor and Trump supporter Mel Gibson.
RFK Jr. says that some of the programs removed were cut by accident and told reporters that some of the cut programs will be reinstated soon after being asked why the department got rid of a CDC program that monitors lead levels in children.
President Trump announced today that he is once again extending the deadline for TikTok.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he plans to tell the CDC to stop recommending fluoride in America's drinking water.
Trump is saying tariffs on China go to 104% on Wednesday if they don't back down.
Millions of lives are at risk as the Trump administration ends funding to food programs. It's cut off the UN World Food Program emergency programs.
The National Park Service has removed a reference to Harriet Tubman from a webpage about the Underground Railroad.
President Trump taking a U-turn on tariffs. The president just a short time ago declaring a 90-day pause on nearly all of his new tariffs.
President Trump is hedging on when new tariffs are coming on critical electronics and semiconductor chip products.
The president threatened to pull Harvard University's tax-exempt status one day after freezing more than $2 billion in federal grants.
President Trump has asked the Supreme Court to let his administration's policy prohibiting transgender people from serving in the military take effect as legal challenges play out.
President Trump responded with this online. Quoting now, "I am not happy with the Russian strikes on Kyiv, not necessary and very bad timing. Vladimir, stop."
The FBI says it's arrested a Wisconsin state judge today for allegedly helping an undocumented migrant avoid getting arrested by ICE agents.
President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met privately today before attending the funeral for Pope Francis.
He has the lowest approval rating at this milestone of any president within inside of the last 80 years.
There are only 1,361 days to go of this journey.